Welcome to the Not Finished Mindset Podcast, where we dive deep into the relentless pursuit of growth, resilience, and pushing beyond limits. This isn't just another podcast, it's a lifestyle. Whether you're an entrepreneur, athlete, or everyday warrior, we're here to remind you that the journey is never over and the best is yet to come. Get ready to challenge the status quo, break through barriers, and ignite the mindset that says, I'm not finished. I've got more to grow.
All right, what's up, y'all? Derek Guerin. I am super excited here today to have the guest we've got with us today. We've got Master Sergeant, retired United States Air Force, Chris Beversdorf. He is a husband, he is a father, and he is a retired Air Force TACP. Chris, what's up, dude? How you doing?
Oh, I'm pretty good. How about yourself?
Man, I'm not on the retired side yet. I'm still trying to get my mustache as far out there as I can, but you've got me super jealous with the beard, dude. I love it.
Yeah. After 20 years of mandatory shaving, my wife was regrettably informed that it's going to be 20 years of not shaving. Needless to say, she's not happy.
And she'll work it out. Catherine's a resilient woman.
Yeah.
Man, so yeah, have you got how long did it take to get past the itchy phase? I've never got there.
Only like a month or so, maybe a little bit longer, but once you get past that part, it's good.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's that reminds me of another role the beard reminded me of. I missed the role of also known as the Viking on Instagram. So if
Yeah.
y'all have got your phone with you, go to Instagram and follow the Viking, and you can follow all of Chris's adventures. But as I said, Chris is an awesome person to get to know. I had the pleasure of getting to know him for about 4 years. 4 years. I met you at the
Yep.
schoolhouse before you went out to go be a recruiter, and then our paths crossed again whenever started working in the Special Warfare Recruiting Squadron, the 330th down in San Antonio when y'all moved down there, and then I moved over to that role. So that wasn't the start of the career, but what started this whole Air Force thing for you, Chris? What did that journey look like for you?
So it's not unlike most people. You're coming up on high school, schools force, a lot of the go to college, do this, get your degree. And not that I wasn't smart, but I just wasn't interested in that. I had kind of no direction, didn't know what I wanted to do. I was working at McDonald's. I actually did enjoy it. It was had its ups and downs, but I still enjoy McDonald's food. But
Nice.
I was living with my dad and stepmom. I knew I wanted to get out on my own and do my own thing. And I was at least smart enough to realize I can't do that on a McDonald's budget. And so, the option was, okay, well, let's join the military and see what happens with that. I hit up the Army. Those guys, recruiters were jerks. Went to the Air Force. It was just a nice little Hispanic lady, real cute, told me what I wanted to hear. And I signed up. When I was 17, actually, I had to go to my parents and have them sign with me so that I could sign up. And I had a few months left of high school. Graduated high school, spent about a week, 2 weeks getting my affairs in order for me to leave, selling cars, getting rid of stuff. And then off to basic training. And going there, I didn't know what I was going to do. I was open mechanic, just something mechanical, and I'd figure it out when I get there. Initially, I got signed up to do aerial gunner, which you either sit inside of a helo or aircraft one, AC-130, something along those lines, and that sounded cool. I got to shoot guns and do fun stuff, and I'd never really done that a whole lot before. A little bit in Boy Scouts, but it sounded interesting and fun. After that, a few days later, we got the briefings from all of what's now, the Special Warfare crew of career fields. So I sat through PJ and Combat Controller, SEER, TACP, all of them. And for just about all of them, I was like, that sounds fun. I want to do that. So I went and took the pass. And at the time, it was kind of take the pass and see where you kind of fall. I was actually more interested in combat controller at the time, but unfortunately, I swim like a goober. And long story short, dog paddling doesn't quite get you in for that. But I was also, yeah, unfortunately.
I didn't realize that. Yeah, yeah, that didn't get you in the door.
But then listening to the TACP guy and, during around doing the pass, and they're like, well, TACP's good. You get to blow up stuff. I'm like, well, that sounds like fun. You get to, you know, do silly stuff as a TACP, cause shenanigans, wreak havoc. And I was like, well, I come from a background of wanting to be a punk and, wearing weird stuff and causing ruckus anyway. So that sounded like up my cup of tea, up my alley. I had no idea what I was getting into, not one bit.
So on that note, I love your description. Like you significantly downplay the TACP in modesty and how you put it up, and in saying, you said cause shenanigans and wreak havoc, I believe is what you said.
Yeah,
What
yeah, something along
exactly
those lines.
can you define that with what is cause shenanigans and wreak havoc, and what does TACP stand for?
So, Tactical Air Control Party, and that's a group of guys that go out with the Army and they help with the coordination piece of what's going on in the ground with the Army and what's going on in the sky with the Air Force, and we're that connecting piece that merges those two things together. The fun stuff is we're that direct link on weapons falling off of planes or getting shot from planes onto the ground. That is just a small portion of what we do, but it's what we're well known for. But just that coordination piece, and it goes a lot far further into that with intelligence and planning and finding out what the bad guys are doing and how we're going to engage them, and just really that integration piece, which is probably 80%, if not more, of what we do. But it's not the fun stuff. It's paperwork, it's meetings, it's playing the what if games and wargaming and stuff. And it's not necessarily fun, but it's what makes all the magic happen.
Yeah. I see you're still excited by the fun part, but I sense that you're over the paperwork aspect with retirement just a little bit maybe.
Yeah. I haven't done paperwork at all. I mean, just filing my taxes was enough. And that was just me shuffling paperwork over to someone else to do it for me. And I'm about.
That's it. Hey, I don't blame you, man. Yeah, lots of paperwork, I'm sure, especially with the line of work and what goes into that. Um, so TACP is not an easy pipeline. So going through that, you went to BMT, you got the briefing, decided to go TACP, couldn't quite get the swimming to go controller, and that doesn't mean by any means that TACP is easier. It just means that the water's not a part of it. And as you said, TACP is going to integrate typically with the Army, and Army is not that amphibious force, so the water's not necessarily needed except to stay hydrated. So going through that pipeline, what was that like? What were the challenges, and what got you through that?
Yeah, so, as we kind of talked about, I had no idea what I was getting into. I had no preparation on the front end. When I signed up for the Air Force, they're like, you're going to need to run and do push-ups and sit-ups. So literally, like, I think my first time going for a run was 2 months before I went to basic training. Like, I had
Nice.
no idea what I was doing. I never worked out. Gym was just, if for high school, was just walking around the track, bull crapping with my friends and stuff like that. Little bit of push-ups, little bit of sit-ups, little bit of running on my own, but without any knowledge of what I'm doing. They give you a little bit and basic enough to get you by, to get everyone through the Air Force PT test. But by all means, it's not anything that's gonna get you ready for one of the pipeline career fields. But so then I went off to the TACP schoolhouse out in, it was still in Florida at the time, and this was circa 2003. And I mean, hell, it was my first time being onto that side of the country. I had only been to a couple other states prior to my Air Force career. But get out there, and it is fun, but the bad kind of fun where, oh, I'm enjoying this. It's miserable, but I'm enjoying this. And that's kind of going to be the trait for the next, rest of my life is, this sucks. Let's do it some more.
Yeah, that's
But,
contagious, though. By the way,
right?
yeah, I think I caught that from you and another couple of the guys a little bit more. So I get it.
But so yeah, carrying on the theme with that, I have no idea what I'm doing. We're getting issued gear, we're doing stuff. They're trying to get us physically ready as much as we can with the MTLs, the leaders there that are kind of in charge of the guys outside of, the schoolhouse education plan. But I failed before I even started. Now, by fail, I mean, yes, I got washed back, but the weekend prior to 0 day, we had slept in bunk beds. You paired up with one guy in a room, but the bunk beds are extra tall because you have rucksacks and all your gear that you have to fit underneath them. So that first bunk bed is like belly button high, and then the top bunk is even higher. And I don't know what got into me, goober, bad dream, who knows, but I sort of rolled out of bed from the top bunk and fell, roughly the 8 feet or whatever it was. And then trying to catch myself, I got a hairline fracture in my wrist.
Dude.
Yeah. So, still, I've only been there for a few weeks or something. I don't know how things work. So they shuttle me off to the ER. They take x-rays. They say, hey, you got a hairline fracture. A month, you're going to be good. And they didn't even put a cast on it. They just wrapped it up in a bandage and was like, you're good. I didn't know to ask for waivers or anything like that. I don't know. I've been in the Air Force for all of like 3 months. I don't know how
Right.
any of this works. So I show up to day 0, which starts off first thing in the morning with a PT test. Wait in line, get up to me, and it's at the time it was Lombardo. So if any of the older guys know him, he's an interesting character. But he's like, all right, get down, push-ups. And I was like, I can't. He's like, no, get down and do push-ups. I was like, I can't, I hurt my wrist. And he's like, okay, well then failure to train. And I was like, no, I want to do push-ups, but I can't. I fractured my wrist. And he's like, okay, well, where's your waiver? I was like, what waiver? He's like, yeah, get down and do push-ups. And I was like, but I can't. The doctor told me not to do anything. So we went around this, and this was all of like 30 seconds interaction. And you know how it is with instructors, goes into chaos pretty quickly. But then the lead instructor came over, what's going on? I explained to him, I fell out of bed, I fractured my wrist. The doctor said not to do it. And he was like, okay, well, you're getting washed back. Well, okay, I guess. So, yeah, I failed day 0, a washback, but not that it was on me quitting or anything like that. Go back, continue on, get healed up, stay with the MTLs, train, start another class or 2 down the road, and carry on as normal. I still wasn't very fit. My PT tests were very unimpressive. It was based off of Air Force standards, not TACP standards. So, like most of the guys there, we weren't where we needed to be. So they just have all the tools of the trade of, you have to pay to get in and out of buildings. Whenever you walk out of a building, even if it's for a piss break, you got to do, X amount of push-ups or pull-ups to come in or get out. And so through a lot of that, I eventually got to where I needed to be so that at the end of it, with the final PT test, we were able to do it. There's a lot of other benchmarks. They probably are very much different now through the pipeline, but we had to do a 4-mile, 100-pound ruck for time. We had the
That's
12-mile ruck march. Go ahead.
that's a lot of weight. And so you're I'm guessing at 17, you're a pretty thin guy still. At 17, what do you think you were weighing carrying 100 pounds? Like, what was that ratio like?
I mean, with 100 pounds as the rucksack weighs, not counting water, food, anything else that we have to carry that's a consumable, the bag weighed as much as me. When I went to basic, I was roughly 115 pounds. During
That's
basic, I
crazy.
dropped down to 111. I got to the TACP schoolhouse at ballpark like 115, 116, and I left the schoolhouse at 135 pounds.
Dude, you
So,
talk about putting on some weight. Man, they fed you
yeah,
well, huh?
I mean, yeah, but I mean, when you think about it, 135 pounds isn't a whole lot either, not when you're having to carry weight and people and all that stuff. I was on when it comes down to looking at someone physically, how they look and carry themselves, like I was not on anyone's list to actually make it through the schoolhouse. But it still happened. Let's see, I want to say my class started out roughly 45 people, and when we graduated, it was a baker's dozen, 13, and a couple of those 13 were washbacks from other flights. So the original crew is probably roughly 8 guys or so. Yeah,
Man, either way, 30 or 20 pounds of muscle putting it on within that is pretty crazy. That's a lot of solid meat to put on there, man. There's
yeah,
people who train for years in the gym to put that on, but you were working day in and day out to do it. Um, and you might not have been on anybody's radar by any means, right? Like from what you're saying,
yeah.
but what's really cool is to know what I know about you is where that ended, right? Is you might not have been on anybody's radar up front, but Chris Beversdorf became kind of a legend within the TACP community for a lot of different reasons. And so that translated, to you eventually got the beret, you graduated, right? And then you started down to becoming operational, which, like you said, operational is not all the movies love to portray it that like you go to basic training and then all of a sudden you're at war, right? And you're doing the job. But there's that training as well as follow-on training and getting up to speed and making sure that your skills are tight. You're never going to rise to the occasion, right? You always fall back to your training, so you got to make
Hmm.
sure that you're in line with it. So 17 years old joining, I think one of the cool things I've seen about the TACP career field is immediately, because you're working with the Army, it's not in the same rank structure, right? Like a private in the Army answers to a specialist, and that specialist answers to the sergeant, and so on and so forth, right, all the way up to the top of the chain. And then you
Hmm.
start bringing in the LTs and the captains and that rank structure. But you're immediately, as a not 17 anymore but 18, 19-year old airman, you're now communicating with who on the Army side. What was your
I
counterpart?
mean, it depends on, who you're aligned with and who you're working with. So that can vary from, talking to LTs, working, at a platoon, all the way to my first deployment was roughly 16 months into my career. Joined in June of 2003. And then my first deployment to Iraq was October 2004. So it was a quick turnaround, but my first deployment was with a division, the division tactical. And, I'm purely doing paperwork admin, helping facilitate all the guys that are below me. They're sending up requests for aircraft to go out and do missions, and I'm the guy that's helping QC them, process it, work it through the system so that they can get their air, whether it's pre-planned stuff or immediate of like, crap, we're getting shot at, we need stuff now, doing my part to help get them what they need from that level. But from there in that division, there's, maybe you got a couple captains, but everyone that you're working with is going to be a captain, a major, a lieutenant colonel. And as a airman first class looking over to major whatever saying, hey, I need this, what's the status on this, asking them for infill, like it yes, rank matters, but at one point in time it's like what you're doing matters, your position. And sure, you have to be respectful, they're not your buddies or your friends, but you have to engage with them the correct way. But still,
Right.
like, you're up there with the weight of what you do and the details of the planning that you execute, that you're doing the work of a lieutenant colonel, a major, or something like that that's in those positions. So it's interesting. You learn a lot. There's nothing better than botching up briefings to 1 and 2 star generals as an airman first class. But whatever, they know you're a new guy, so they don't give you too much grief.
Yeah. And we've all had our fair share of jacked up briefings, right?
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah, yeah. I could probably write a book with all my failed briefings, but you either win or you learn. So going into that, when first deployment, when did you get your beret? Like how long beret
Let's
to that
see.
actual deployment were you?
So I got my beret in roughly January of 2004. I got to Germany in February 2004. I had survival school. And then, so February to April, however the math comes, February to October. So whatever
Wow.
the math comes out for that,
Quick
6 months
turnaround.
or something, 8 months. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And so that's during that assignment, is that where you met Catherine then?
Yeah, that's where I met Catherine, my wife. We've been married since roughly 2009, but we started dating in 2005.
Wow.
Yeah. So I met her
Okay.
there. Her twin sister, but not identical, was dating one of my radio maintenance guys, and she wanted someone to come with her when she came to visit him every once in a while. And so she came a few times. We met through that. And even though initially she wanted nothing to do with me, persistence was key, and that worked out.
That's it, man. Nothing beats the power of a made up mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right?
You wore her down eventually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, 19 years, 19 years married this year, right? Or knowing each other, 19 years dating, coming up
Yeah.
on what, 15 years of marriage? I'd say it's working out pretty well, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, not on behalf of me. I'm surprised she still stays with me because I don't make anything easy.
We'll get into some of those stories I've come to know about you too. Those are definitely a tough woman. She's always cool, calm, and collected. That was evident in y'all's marriage, man. But behind every man who does amazing things, there's always a good woman, is what I found. So kudos to Catherine
Yep.
on that. And so going into that, when do you think, like, you kind of went into this not blindly, but not really knowing what to expect. But um, was it during a deployment or was it before? When did it become very real to you and evident, like what you were doing and the gravity and the impact of like what an actual TACP is in the Air Force and what your job was going to be? When do you think it got real for you?
Yeah. So that probably would have been my third deployment. I went to Iraq first, then Afghanistan, then back to Iraq. At the time, I was a senior airman. I had been to the JTAC schoolhouse to become a guy who's certified to talk to planes and tell them what they can and can't blow up. But I didn't have my evaluation yet, so I couldn't go off on my own, do my own thing. Didn't have my, I don't know, initial eval yet.
Right.
So I was still a ROMAD, radio operator, maintainer, and driver, and my job was to help. I'm aligned with the JTAC, and I help him out and facilitate. I work the radios, I work maps. I'm his backup if something happens to him, that I can step into his shoes for emergency situations and things like that. And I mean that's exactly what happened. We the crew that he was with had did a good job in Baghdad, cleaning up the city, messing up the bad guys, and getting things in order there. So there was another area near Fob, Normandy, and I'd have to look up what the names of the towns are again of where all these places are. But went there to go into an area that the previous guys had issues with, and they knew there were a ton of bad guys, and they weren't willing to deal with it. So we went in there. The area was referred to as the breadbasket because there's two rivers that kind of blocked off this chunk of land. It was very fertile soil, which really has nothing to do with it, but there was just a ton of bad guys. So me and the JTAC, we were working with some of the recon guys for this unit, and just burn and turn, going out and doing feint operations, trying to see how we can get in here, what places are accessible or not, performing actions to make it think that we're going someplace else and not the place that we're actually looking, things like that. And so we did run into our fair share of IEDs and things like that. This was circa 2008. So, that's just the name of the game. And the game is, hey, let's catch an IED and see if we make it or not. But we do that for a while, get things in order, and then everyone goes in to assault this area. And initially, it's pretty quiet, like awkwardly quiet. Of course, everyone runs into more IEDs and things like that. Long story short, unbeknownst to us, there's a lot of stories from people out there, is that the Iraqi police or army, whoever was working with us, of course, tipped them off, a day or two before we started. And so everyone just laid a bunch of IEDs and bailed. And unfortunately, we got stuck with dealing with that. But no, there was a town, I think it was the town of Little Sinsel. We wanted to find the city mayor or the person who's in charge of the town and set up a small little shack and OP, get on top of a building, things like that, and do our thing, occupy an area while we set up and figure out what to do next. My JTAC went out, and so he had previously said, hey, I'm going to go walk around this town with the guys, to go do this, but you can go out on the next time just so you can stretch your legs when you're stuck in a striker for 24 hours. You get a little antsy and just it sucks to be stuck in there. So
Right.
it was my turn to go out, but he said nah, stay there. And I was kind of like, well, fuck you, guy, I want to go out too. But he went out. He's the JTAC. He makes the decision, and so is what it is. He went out to go do his thing and kind of follow the platoon commander around and assess what's going on and work aircraft if he got them and whatnot. So I'm sitting there, they're maneuvering to a building that they want to go occupy. Sitting there with the driver and the gunner, just bullshitting on the radios, chit chatting, doing nothing, and then we hear an utterly large explosion. We had been doing like terrain denial and preemptive fires, but from what I knew and remember, and from my notes, is that we shouldn't be shooting anymore. And so, everyone's getting on the radios. Hey, what was that? Who knows what's going on? And, you kind of get that sink in your gut feeling of like, oh man, something just happened. So I was like, hey guys, wait for the call, start up your vehicles, let's get ready to move. And then the call came in from, I want to say it was the platoon leader, but someone who was on the ground and said, hey, we just got hit by a houseborne IED. We need you guys here now. So then we start hauling, asked to try to get to where they are. And this is a very small desert mud hut town, small roads. We're in the equivalent of a freaking, a 30-foot RV. And we're trying to navigate to get to these guys. And in the process of doing that, I know there was the IED, but we don't know if there's guys. I mean, clearly we don't hear gunfire, so no one's getting shot at, but you never know what's going to happen next. So I
Right.
hop on the SATCOM satellite radio and, hey, we're getting attacked. We need aircraft. Get them to us. Our striker drivers trying to get to this road, and it just ends up being impassable between walls and drainage ditch for irrigation and water. Our vehicle is slipping off into this ditch and we couldn't get through, so we radioed to the other guys, hey, find another way. They went around the town and ultimately made it to the guys first. And us backing up, was like, hey, we need to get out of here. This wasn't working. We couldn't back up in this weird spot. So we're like, hey, are you good driving through walls? And he was like, yep, send it. And then we just literally drove through someone's backyard in reverse, did a 3-point turn and then got out of there. Sucks for them, but
Did,
and their
didn't leave
goats
a
are.
note.
Yeah, didn't leave a note. They found
I think
out
it's
through
okay.
the fact that their cows or goats or whatever was back there. It was running through the town after the fact, but so be it, is what it was. We got around to link up with the other guys, and I had my head poked out of the air guard hatch, which is to basically stand up out of it and look around. And I pull up, and I just see in this courtyard a building completely just perfectly pancaked out. Some guys running around, on their knees, some dudes loading, dragging dudes around. Ramp goes down, go to the PL, and the first thing I can see is like this guy is, I don't know if shell shock is the right words, but I mean, he's an LT, but he's just got the big old eyes. He's not talking normal, he's still trying to like, go get shovels and flares. We need to get these guys out of here and get aircraft here or something. So I get shovels to help start with digging, first aid kits and stuff. Our medic shows up and I hand shovels off to guys. And we have roughly, I want to say it was 4 guys that were outside of the building when it went off. One of those guys was my JTAC, JJ Johnson. At that point in time, like, aircraft wasn't quite on yet. So there was not a whole lot to do. We're not getting shot at. There wasn't that. So I just went down to, I'm good with medical stuff. I'm comfortable with, blood and physical trauma and things like that. So I just started helping the medic, helping assist him with other guys. And ultimately, he just said, "Hey, he's your JTAC, patch him up." And he just threw a medic bag at me, and so I, wrapped his head up. My JTAC, his got hit on the head. I guess his helmet got blown off or something. He had burns kind of to his face a little bit, so he couldn't quite open his eyes and couldn't see. I want to say his collarbone was broken as well. Nothing too crazy, but enough that he needed to get patched up. Hung out with them, assisted the medic, and then aircraft eventually checked on. And here I am, a row mad, don't know what to do, a whole lot. There's no one to blow up or nothing to do with that. So I gave them, a grid, got them to talking or looking to where we're at. And I was just like, hey, we're dealing with a mess down here. We don't know if we're gonna get shot at or nothing, or if there's something to come. Just start doing scans around the town. You know where we are. If you see anything that doesn't look like military movement, call it out, let us know. And then he went off to do that. The next thing was that we needed to get these guys out of here, the ones that got treated for first aid. And surprisingly, there was only a couple people who actually knew where the closest HLZ was, and I just so happened to be one of them. So the PL asked me to escort the strikers with the four guys. I don't know, we took two or three strikers, navigated them to the HLZ, got the helicopter, a touchdown there. The guys loaded up and got them out of there, and continued to work the aircraft a little bit, just looking for stuff to do. I want to say I did do a show of force or something along those lines, but then ultimately, like the
So show of force for those that are listening. The show of force is that
yeah.
you just call them in low and fast, kind of buzz the area.
Yeah. So it's basically like an escalation of force of, well, nothing suits the needs to drop a bomb, but we want to let people know that we're here and we are more than willing to work. So yeah, they come by loud and proud, especially in theater. They'll pull off a bunch of flares, which is, just a big sparkly whatever thing, yeah, they use it for air to air stuff, but it works really great when you bounce a couple flares off of the ground over a town. It lets people know that we're there and working. And it's just a deterrent. So if anyone is thinking of getting a little frisky, we're ready to work with it. But
Makes
the
sense.
thing is after all that, the recon element that we had was roughly, I don't know, ballpark 26 dudes. We had an IED about a week prior or so that took out a couple guys, just injuries. No one got like hurt. Everyone was walking out of there. But then with this houseborne IED, yeah, there was four guys on the outside that got messed up, but there was six guys and our interpreter that were inside the building when it went off. And so after the fact, we know it was a crush wire detonated houseborne IED. It was set up perfectly. Walls 100% completely blowed out. The thick, heavy roof completely collapsed and pancaked everyone. Like it would have been instant death if the explosion didn't kill them. The building getting blown out and that roof coming down. It was quick. Sidebar though, there is a guy, Donnie. He was, from what we knew, from New York, worked with the police, some type of special guy that had access to lots of special crime tools. And so he was able to find pieces from the IED, pull fingerprints off of them. A month or two later was actually able to find these guys. Their mother actually turned them in once we got their names and started asking around. And then they got picked up and, dealt with appropriately. I think they were supposed to go to Iraqi jail or prison or whatever they did with the guys to process them then. But
Yeah.
hopefully things turned out not in their favor and they don't have to pleasure us with their lives in this world anymore. But you never know what happens.
Yeah.
But there were so many guys taken out from the recon team that they were not able to man themselves. They were pulled back for a couple months, just doing day to day nothing stuff, not operational, just because they had so few guys now.
Yeah.
the whole lesson from this was, what I got out of it after the fact. I came home and I was coming up towards my 6 years for having to re-enlist. And, after going through all that, I was kind of like, hey, man, like, I didn't sign up to get blown up and have my friends and colleagues get blown up and have to deal with all this stuff. That's not what I want to do. So I was going to go out and join the Border Patrol. I mean, I even took their paper test and did their interview, and they're all like, hell yeah, man, we want you. As soon as you got your
Yeah.
GD 214, we'll take you. But that all changed. I have an uncle that lives in Texas, and he was at some event doing video photography stuff, was wearing a name tag, and someone saw his name tag. Beversdorf is a pretty unique name. There's not a whole lot of us out there, and said,
Yeah.
hey, I know that name. Is your son in the military or anything? He said, no, I got a kid in high school, but no one in the military. They're like, oh, okay. Well, he asked why. He said, oh, well, I know someone named Beversdorf that saved my son's life, gave him first aid, and that whole shenanigans in Iraq. And so my uncle, got a hold of me and called me. He's like, "Hey, what do you do?" Because I never really told my folks what it is I exactly do, and they just weren't quite aware. But then he
Yeah.
told me that, and I was like, okay. I kind of put all the pieces together and was like, that's what my purpose is on the battlefield. Yeah, the fun stuff is to kill people and blow stuff up and, make big people into little people. And is that a piece of it? Sure. But, really, we're out there to save guys' lives, whether it's through this process or that, or, killing the enemy. Like, I have the skills and the capacity to actually make that big difference on the battlefield. And that's where I changed my mind. I mean that, and then of course a reenlistment bonus of $40,000, but you won't turn that down.
That, that'll do it. Money talks.
Yeah, yeah. But that's when I was like, okay, I need to change how I think about this going forward, because knowing what it is that I have to do, I kind of had to eternalize that idea of that there's a good chance that I'm probably going to die when I go off to war and work, but it's my job to save as many lives on the way and kill as many bad guys as I can when I go out. And if it happens, it happens, and do your thing. And if you come back, cool. And if you don't, well, I'm not going to be around to deal with it. So, but that's where that was the big turning point in what I believe with this career. And while I was never unsuccessful, I was always a pretty average guy. That's when I kind of decided, okay, let's do this for reals. And you make mistakes. I have a career full of mistakes and fuck ups and mess ups and things like that. But I tried to be really good at what I did, and I think I was pretty halfway decent after that.
I think that's a an understatement, Chris. Who you are and what you've done for our country, is amazing, man. And you're like the most humble guy about it and how you bring it up, and that's I think that kind of speaks to that. Like, not even your family knew what you did, right?
Yeah,
I only probably know what you do because I work with you and got to know you and stuff like that,
yeah,
and just I poke and pry and we talk on these things, man. So I appreciate you being willing to come on here and talk about this. Because I think it is really important for that piece right there. That for a long time, the description was like, if we're describing special warfare, we'd say, oh, PJs save lives, TACPs take lives on the battlefield. But what you said right there is essential to understand that TACPs, it's not all that, right? And there's a part where the enemy, where there's a need for a call for fire, right? There's a need that it happens. A threat needs to be neutralized. The enemy needs to be destroyed, but that is ultimately saving lives. And what
mm,
America is doing around the world is ultimately saving lives. And that's why people want to see, the people of oppressed nations want to see American military come. And that's what you did for many people is free them from that, get them some reprieve from it, and also protect many of the American forces that were carrying out those various missions through the ability to coordinate all of that close air support. And that's awesome too. to see that even after this long, man, you're still so humble about it, and it's so like nonchalant and how comfortable you are, going through it. I know a lot of growth to get to that point to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I got to ask on one story though. When I had Chris Thomas on here a couple weeks ago, we were joking about how we call you the cat, how you've got 9 lives. I don't know if we could go through all of your near death experiences, but one of them that I wanted to pick your brain on that I know a little bit about is the helicopter. You're the only guy I know, and I'm willing to bet there's many people that are going to listen to this podcast that you will be the only one they've heard the story that has survived a helicopter crash. Not only a helicopter crash, but a helicopter crash in a war zone. And what happened there, man? What went down on that one?
Well, long story short, the helicopter crashed, and that's it. No, I'm
Oh,
kidding.
okay. That was it. That was it.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
No, so this was, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, my fifth deployment. I am back in Afghanistan on the east side in the mountains. This kind of borders with Pakistan there. It's not too far away. There was a big operation going on that everyone was getting ready for, and it was going into the Wadapur Valley. The quick and easy of it is that we knew that there was some form of terrorist training camp. They're turning out bad guys, and we need to go stop it. It's a notoriously very bad area. If you're familiar with Rest Repo and some of the valleys that worked in there, there's just everyone that lives in that area is just loves fighting, whether they love it or it's just been part of their culture for so long, so many years of people, occupying that. They like to fight. So I was thrown into this from the brigade. I was up there again helping facilitate all my guys down at the battalions. And at the brigade level, they have something called FTF, Focused Targeting Force, and they would go out and do specific things that were outside of what the battalions were doing for their day-to-day ops. And so we would piecemeal guys into it. And it was my turn to go out with these guys. So I met up down at the battalions. I met them for all of, like, I don't know, 24 hours to go out and do some work. And so that work was that we were the backup. We were the, hey, if things go wrong, we're going to go out there to go help these guys out for this operation. A quick reconnaissance force, QRF, or quick reaction force. Quick response force, something along those lines. So we start the operation. We're sitting at the fob just waiting for nothing to happen. I'm in the talk, of course, helping the crew out there. And our guys infill and they start working. And their work quickly turns into there are definitely bad guys here and they are well prepared, unfortunately. So the guys that went in, they quickly got pinned down, stuck in buildings, stuck in ditches. Like the JTEC that was out there, he had a very bad experience. The enemy is very well equipped on the sniper shooter side of the house. So anytime someone popped their head up, they were getting bad shots. So with them getting pinned down, we said, hey, we're going to go out and we're going to go help these guys up. We roll heavy, we roll hard, and we're going to just, do what we can to run a train on these guys. Flying in at night, I am part of the, in there with the FTF battle captain, and we're flying in. And it's, a Chinook. I can't remember which chalk we were on, I think it was 4 flights to get us out there. But we're coming into land, and, you get turbulence here or there. That's normal. You can feel the change in the aircraft of like, hey, we've started our descent, we're coming down. We knew we were heavy, we had it stacked full. I think the max was 30 people for the loadout, the circumstances, the elevation we were coming into. But we also, are carrying skids, dead body sleds that we fill with extra ammunition, tons of mortars and stuff. And then we just rotate guys to drag that stuff around up and down this mountain. So we're heavy, and I like to explain it like this: is you and me, we drive cars. We drive cars every day. It's our main means of transportation. We can pull into parking spaces. We can back up to parking spaces. We can do that with a loaded car, an unloaded car, all those types of things. I would assume that it's the same way with helicopters. It's their main mean of transportation. The pilots drive it regularly, hint in that. But long story short, the pilot, I think he skipped out on the parking class because he did not do it very well. Coming into land, he was either a little heavy, came in a little fast. The HLZ we were coming into is at 10,000 feet, which is very high for these heavy aircraft. Just the air is thin, takes a lot more to get their lift out there. So it's probably a combination of all of those things. But at the very tip top of this mountain, his rear end slipped out from him and clipped a tree. We were about 100 feet, because it's angled, coming into this HLZ. So the top of the mountain's up here, angled down, nice flat area that, hell, I would expect that the Russians back in the 80s or 70s, whenever they were there, used the same HLZ that we were using because, there's only so many flat spots you can land at. But coming in over the top of this mountain, butt end slips out, clips a tree with the rotors, and we fell roughly about 100 feet into the HLZ. Kind of after the fact, piecing it all together, looking at the tree that we could physically see that got hit and things like that. And what I felt was like, the jolt, and initially you're kind of like, that's not normal. But then when you actually start the falling process, and it's kind of like that roller coaster ride, your stomach goes in, it's kind of just like, all you can do is squeeze out and oh shit, oh fuck, or something along those lines as you're falling. And then that impact of actually hitting the ground. We had stuff ratchet strapped down, everything. Didn't matter. People, stuff, everything got very much displaced in that helicopter when we hit the ground. Everything broke loose. It ended up a dog pile of people and gear, everything in the front of the aircraft. I had a Camelback in that exploded. Like, I thought my face exploded. I didn't know it was my Camelback, and all I felt was just this gushy, salty stuff come out. And I was like, of course, my face got hit by bags of people and all sorts of stuff. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be bleeding, this or that, and trying to unass ourselves out of that helicopter. And it would just end up being my Camelback. I did have a couple cuts on my nose and face from stuff, but, it's middle of the night. It's dark. Any NVGs that we did have ready are a big hot mess all over the place, either broken or this or that. But I remember looking out the rear end of this helicopter, and all I see is pitch blackness. I don't even see most of the helicopter. I see pitch blackness, and then I see the rear rotor outside the side door of this Chinook, and fire. Lots of fire. I opted for the fire versus the dark void of nothingness at the back. And so got all of these guys out. A few people had to get dragged out. Me and the PL started doing that. And then me and the captain were like, the pilots. And we think always in the movies, like the pilots are going to be stuck in their chair and they're going to have like bars sticking out of their chest or something. We go up to the front and it's a little like walkway and we look at the chairs. Like, the pilots aren't here. Where the hell are the pilots? And they have little pilot doors on the side. Pilot doors were not there. We're like, weird. So we get into doing our things, giving first aid. I, again, initially start helping I set up shop next to the medic and help feed him medic supplies because, again, I'm comfortable with that stuff. But I am actually working. I am a solo JTAC. I'm there by myself as far as the sole Air Force guy in this unit. Pulling out SATCOM, I'm like, hey, Fallen Angel, I need aircraft now. I'm going to be on this freak. They're like, copy all. And then I just pushed over to my freak to talk to those, work with the aircraft. When the helicopter, or when the fixed wing aircraft, the planes come in, I start working and doing that. We're not getting shot at yet, but again, we know this is a very hostile area and we're expecting something to happen. So I have them start looking around, being the eyes in the sky. We get the guys patched up. Medevac is still a good ways out. So what we do is have one of the other helicopters that flew in with this one was still flying around. We call him back in, he lands. We load all of our hurt guys onto that helicopter. And then the pilots did show back up. So sidebar with the pilots, they apparently have big old like eject buttons and their doors shoot off to the side and then they can crawl out from there very quickly versus having to come through the little tunnel to where the passengers ride. So when they crashed, they had a better view of what was outside. They hit those buttons and bailed. They ran as far as they could because unbeknownst to us is that we were on the side of the HLZ and it was all downhill from there. And they were expecting, at least, my thought process on it was that the Chinook was going to roll. They bailed. We were a
No
little
word.
yeah, no
No
word, no
word.
nothing, going to help anyone else out. All of their rest of their crew, we pulled out, we gave first aid, we put them on there, and the guys kind of showed up and left. So, whatever. There might be other
Sure, they
things
got
that
a little talking to later on by
yeah, we'll
somebody.
see. Yeah, but that's another story.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got the guys out of there, and all was said and done. Now we're faced with the fact of, well, we got this helicopter. Helicopters have lots of secret things on them, radios, gear, all sorts of stuff that we don't know how to deal with. We're not trained in processing that. And so we're like, hey, we still got guys that need our help. Are we going to go help them? Are we staying here with the helicopter? What's going on? We're waiting on higher command to make a decision on what we should do. And something I always like to tell our young guys is that, we do what we can to control aspects on the battlefield, but there's someone else that has a say in it, and that's the bad guys. They have a say in what happens out on the battlefield, and they have a choice, and they had chosen to make a decision for us. They attacked us at dawn. They figured out where we were, and they started shooting. We didn't know a whole lot about where it was coming from, but, quick and easy as we knew what direction we were getting shot on. Got aircraft on, did my thing, dropped a bomb or two. Guys stopped shooting at us, so effects were successful. And then, we got official word that, hey, we need you guys to stay there until we can get a DART team. So that is downed aircraft recovery team, because, aircraft going down in these mountains it happens quite a bit.
Right.
We got to wait for these guys to get, spun up and come out and strip this thing up. So we're here to basically watch that while they call the backup for the backup to actually go help the guys that need to get helped. The quick and easy from there is we stayed out there for 4 days. The DART team eventually came out. They hooked everything up. They pulled out what they needed to pull out, everything else up, got wired with explosives and incendiaries for once we exfil to destroy the rest of that helicopter, so it's not usable. But in those 4 days, the enemy, learned where we were, figured out where we were, and kept on coming. After the fact, what we learned, and after intel gets gathered from all the sources that it can be acquired from, and a better picture painted after the fact, is that the bad guys, if you will, were using where we landed. There was just a big long trail that they used for bringing in supplies, weapons, all sorts of stuff into the area that we were going to be working in. So long story short, it kind of helped out because those supplies would have been going in to feed the bad guys that were, fighting our dudes. So we were that stopping force for whenever they brought stuff in. I dropped a ton of bombs. I think we got attacked, I don't know, 6 or 7 times, if not more. I'd have to go look at notes again. It was a long time ago. But dropped a ton of bombs, ballpark 40 or something over those 4 days.
Wow.
Made a lot of bad guys into little bits of bad guys. But from our crew and my little bubble, we had guys got hurt on the helicopter. But when it comes down to bad guys shooting at us, trying to hurt our guys, I mean, we are a really good team. My fires guys were great. I had a dude with a 60 millimeter, working it from his hand, no tripod, nothing. And I'd be like, hey, I need something 250 meters right over there. And he's like, I got you. And he would start sending mortars over. And the aircraft and the guys on the line, like we're talking dudes hucking hand grenades at, I don't know if it was Taliban or some other agency, but the bad guys. It was a very close fight. Most of all the bombs I dropped were all danger close, too close to friendlies, but, work needed to happen, but it all worked out. The only time I had actual, like, real fear, well, not fear, but like that oh shit moment, did I fuck up? I'm dropping my first 2,000-pound bomb in combat, danger close, and it's real close, uncomfortably close, and the aircraft calls splash, and splash is a warning that says in ballpark 5 to 15 seconds that weapon is going to be impacting the ground. Well, at the same time he called splash, the bad guys, they knew where we were working. They knew where me and the command post was. A lot of fire ended up coming towards us, and I just kept my head down and kept on doing my thing. But they shot a recoilless rocket that hit, I don't know, a couple meters. It was very close to where we were at. At the same time, the pilot called splash. And for that split second, it went through my mind was like, I just dropped a 2,000-pound bomb on myself.
Wow.
So it explodes right next to there. I kind of poked my head up and was like, pardon my French, but the fuck? And then I see my bomb blow up over there. And I was just like, okay, that's mine. What was that? And then, there was a couple more, and then we adjusted fires, and, it all worked out. But that little knoll that we had our little C2 element at, it was me, the fires guys, our comms guys, the FTF commander, we were all there, and we knew that they figured out that that's where things were happening from. And that little knoll went from being a grass knoll to just, you can tell it was just scraped clean from bullets. I mean, you can see the trench marks, and just it got nastier up there. But yeah, roughly 4 days later, we finally had weather and a situation that the aircraft could get there to actually land and pull us out of there, along with, the whole operation being done and getting everyone out of there. Happened 4 days later. And yeah, we got back to the FOB, and my guy at the battalion, my battalion enlisted dude that was running stuff there, Danny, a boy, he dropped a bomb on that helicopter, and I had just landed. This was roughly 26 miles away, and I swear to God, I thought a nuclear bomb went off. Between all the extra explosive stuff that they put in there, all the fuels and oils that leaked from that aircraft, when he dropped a bomb on it, it turned into daylight 26 miles away, and then we could see a no shit mushroom cloud from just the amount of volume of smoke and things burning. It was insane. But yeah, that was the ultimate, like, coming from like the IED and deciding, hey, like, I'm going to be good at what I'm doing, and then going in and doing that. That whole crew out there with the FTF, I'd only known those guys for roughly 24, maybe 26 hours before we crashed on a helicopter. So we became friends really quick. But it, just me trying to be good at what I do, it ultimately worked out. I think there's a ton of JTACs out there that would have equally done just as well. Some would have done better, maybe some would have done worse. I just happened to be presented with that opportunity, and I had made all that effort to try to be the best at what I can, and it all worked out successfully.
It paid off, and a lot of people are alive today as a result. A lot of the bad guys are not as a result as well, as you said.
Yeah, and I know you probably talked about it with Thomas's stuff, but it's it's not about being luck. It's just that preparation, meeting opportunity. When those two things pair together, it worked out really great. So at least in my small bubble, it worked out very great. For other people out in the whole battlefield, I was less great, but I can only control my piece of the pie.
Right. And your piece, you controlled it with precision, and that's the thing, right? Coordinate with those aircraft, the message you have to relay in the midst of that chaos. Again, the movies, right? The combat controller, the JTAC, the what is it? Transformers, when Tyrese is like, AC-130, bring the rain. I know every JTAC and controller hates that movie for that scene right there, but that's not how it is. You've got to calm yourself. You've got to find that inner that not trying to be cheesy or like a yoga instructor, but you've got to find that calm to relay in the midst of chaos your message clearly of where and how you want that delivered. And those calculations are done under duress. And so all that stress that you're put through, all those things that prepare you, come down to being able to deliver that in the right moment. And I think that's been one of the really important parts is to know is that you didn't, again, going back to it, like you didn't come into this as the guy that was ready to do that. Everything you did prepared you up to that moment to where you
Mm-hmm.
were the best person for you were the right person, and clearly it shows because of how it turned out. There's not a lot of there's not a lot of people that could have done that. Like you said, there's maybe some other JTACs that could have done it, but you were the guy, and your skills ensured that people lived. So that's just one of Chris Beversdorf's 9 lives. I don't think we're going to have time to get into all of them, but maybe we'll do a series. Maybe I can talk you back into doing this. This is kind of cool. But being on the other side of the world, I'm in Hawaii right now. You're in Germany, and we figured out we are like exactly 12 hours apart on the other side of the inside of the world. So you're starting your day off. I'm getting ready to put it down here in a little bit, but I do want to ask one very important question. You're retired from the Air Force. You spent, a little over 20 years total, and uh, you're retired, but I am sure you're not done. What is next for Chris Beversdorf?
Well, so what's next is, trying to figure out what it is I want to do and like to do. And I think I got a good way forward. But 20 years of doing a job like that kind of becomes your culture, your life, like that comes everything. And now that I'm no longer a TACP, you're always a TACP. I'm just a retired TACP now. I was just
Right.
trying to find my identity outside of that. And I've always liked biking, even when I was a kid, working on my own bikes and stuff. And then later on in my career, between injuries, this or that, running became a very painful thing to do, even though I did enjoy it a lot. I had to find that something else. And so, as you can see with the bikes behind me, I like bicycles, riding bikes, working on bikes, talking about bikes. I think my wife's over it already, but that's my passion now, and specifically endurance mountain biking. Sitting on that bike, going off into the woods, sometimes with people, but usually just by myself. Listen to the tires, rolling on that gravel road or that single track trail. It's a mental, it kind of just, it helps with that mental health. It helps with, just sitting down, thinking there's no stress out there, just you and the trail and nature. And it's a good feeling. And then I can also kick my own ass and get some physical activity in for that. But yeah, just doing all things bike. I am here in Germany. If it wasn't for all of their Germans like to be very regulatory and have lots of rules, so I can't open my own like garage bike shop, even though right over here I have everything to be a fully functional bike shop. You have to be a master certified mechanic, and that takes years and years of training to have your own bike shop. And that is a long ways away from me doing that. So for the time being, I work on bikes for friends, family here in town, small town, 10,000 people. I know probably just about half of them. So I can keep myself busy, working for free because I'm not allowed to earn money, fixing bikes, working on bikes. I got my friends that I ride bikes with, and that's about it. My latest uh, trial was a 28-hour bike ride. So it is a series race that builds up to two 28-hour races. And it's a
Wow.
solo race that you do. It's everyone starts at roughly the same time. But I'm racing with guys in Germany, guys in Belgium and the Netherlands, some guys in America, all over. And you plan your own route. You make your own, you do it all on yourself on what it is you want to do. And the race is based off of, okay, you have 28 hours. How much one race is an elevation gain race? How much elevation can you get on your bike in 28 hours? The other one is the ultra distance, which how much distance can you get on your bike in 28 hours? And then you get points based off of factors of how far you go and how much you climb and things like that. And so that is fun. It's interesting, and it's that having to use that mental capacity of deciding I'm gonna do this, and then when it sucks and you're hurt And because you've been on the bike for 24 hours, you have just your, again, part of my French, but you got scabs on your ass because like you've been sitting on there for so long, just riding bumpy, rough roads. You have to do that, it's mental, but that mental gut check of like, this sucks, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to endure. And then doing that. And so it's fun. It's interesting. My wife says she has no idea how I can consider that fun, but it's a challenge to do something that is hard, that while I know I can do it, making that decision of I am actually going to do it and then going on and doing that is the hard part. And there's more of that in the future. I'm already planning on next year's races.
Good, man. Well, I appreciate the encouragement on that, and that's the cool thing, right? You've survived IED blasts, helicopter crash, motorcycle crash, which I know Catherine, part of the agreement there is that you can ride bicycles, but there's no more motors on those bicycles.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Are you still holding off on that, or are you trying to work her on that now?
No, no, no. That's I'm pretty sure long gone. You rip your face off once on a motorcycle accident, you don't get to ride motorcycles anymore.
Yeah. It healed up nicely, though, brother.
Yeah,
Compared to
yeah,
what I
yeah.
saw in the
You can.
hospital. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a scar there still. And
Yeah.
funny thing about that is I had neck problems prior to the motorcycle accident, but you'd think breaking your neck in three places would give you more issues. My neck has been so healthy. It was the ultimate chiropractor work of getting my neck broken. But I don't recommend that path for
Yeah.
anyone else.
No, no, it
Don't take
would.
my medical advice.
That's I don't think we even have to put a warning on that one, that running a motorcycle into a tree and then dropping 20 feet through that tree was yeah. But a lot of people, they say they fell out of the ugly tree. You still wound up a handsome man on the other side of it.
I,
So good on
yeah,
you. And the beard pulls it off.
yeah,
Yeah, so I'm gonna be picking your brain more just because you helped re-pique my interest. I think we met up right before I came over here, and you were heading to Germany, and we did a bike ride. And I'd never rode a a nice bicycle. Like the max I'd ever ridden is like a $200 Huffy from Walmart, and I rode one of your bikes going out in a trail in San Antonio. I think we only rode like maybe 5 or 10 miles or something like that, but through getting over here, I'm coming up on retirement. Next year, I set the goal of I'm going to start Skill Bridge and all that stuff, but I'll actually formally retire hopefully 1 November. The week before that, I want to I'm not I don't want to. I'm going to do the Ironman in Sacramento, California. So I'm going to have to make the purchase of a triathlon bike, which ironically will be worth more than my beater car that I keep outside. Priorities, right?
yeah, yeah.
But I want to pick your brain more just because I know that's a realm that you're 100% an expert on, and I see the running, swimming, and doing that, like finding those things that are hard, and I think that's just such an encouragement for anybody who redefining themselves to have that moment of just thought and clarity
Hmm.
to get out and check out, do some long distance cardio. You don't have to do a 28-hour bike ride, but just 30-40 minute run can do something similar. Picking those hard things and doing them, man. And I think you live by a great example. There's a lot of people that retire, and in the interest of VA disability and stuff, they start defining themselves as broken. If anybody could lean back on injuries and be like, oh, I'm too injured to do that, I think you could be the guy. But the reality is motion's lotion. We all got those things as we get a little older that creak. I'm sure you got quite a few of them after all that.
Definitely.
But as soon as you get them moving, you can be successful. And I appreciate the encouragement on that, man. So final thing I want to ask you here, man.
Shoot.
If you were to give out any life advice, Chris Beversdorf, the guy with 9 lives, still got many more. Which, by the way, I was joking with Chris. I was like, after all these things, all the things you've been through, like, I've always said, like, it's going to be something super uneventful that kills you when you're 90. It's going to be like, choked on a chicken nugget or a popsicle stick or something, like impaled. But it's going to be a long, happy life, man. Lots of good stuff. what would be the life advice that you give anybody listening to this podcast to close this out?
I don't know. Eat more tacos, smoke a joint every once in a while. No, I'm just kidding. Man, life advice. Where I'm at now is, I'm trying to figure out my place in the world, trying to sort out the last 20 years of issues and unpack all that stuff because, there's a lot that comes in, but just appreciating what you do have, not focusing on what you don't, and enjoying the little things, taking that step back and just go like, hey, things are good, or look at the stuff that I have done, not what I haven't done, and just being appreciative of what you do have and not focusing on what's not existent there.
Yeah, I love that, man. And yeah, I know you got a lot to be thankful for, man. Beautiful family, and living in Germany, doing what you dreamed of, and living a pretty awesome life, brother. Not pretty awesome, really awesome life. So, Chris, I thank you so much for coming on this, man. Thanks for the value. I know the listeners of this are gonna love to get to meet you, and I definitely want to do another one of these in the future.
Heck,
And
man.
yeah, thanks so much, brother. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, of course. Glad I could be here. Glad I could help you out, and I love you.
Love you too, brother. Let's do this next time with a cigar. We could find a nice little outside area. I don't think we smoked a cigar in a couple of years. Man, all right. Don't forget, follow the Viking on Instagram. Chris
Heck yeah.
Beversdorf.
Take it
All
easy,
right, brother.
fellas.
Thank you.
Bye.